Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to learn all about ShareFile admin settings. So hopefully you or somebody you know is a ShareFile admin and you want to learn how to set up your account for success for your business. So that's what we're going to cover today in this webinar.
All right, so getting right into it, we'll just jump in. Here we are at our ShareFile Rocks ShareFile account. Let me go ahead and log in here. And you notice here, just before I log in, the left side here is our employee user login. This is for our single sign-on page. This we'll talk about this in a little bit, but essentially the left side is for single sign-on and the right side is going to be your native ShareFile account login. So today we're just going to use our native ShareFile account login. Go ahead and get in. And here we are at our dashboard. To get started, we'll look at some branding. So we'll go into the settings over here. We'll go to admin settings. We'll navigate to company account information and we'll select edit company branding. Now you've got some different options here. At the very top, this is your ShareFile account name. This is just a generalized name. You can put it to your company's name or whatever really you'd like to have it show. This is different than the title up here on the page tab. We'll get into that in a little bit here, but edit account appearance here, we've got some basic options. We're going to actually expand this out using the advanced appearance options, and this will give us a list of all the things we can configure. So if you want to configure your ShareFile account to look a certain way, maybe you want to match the branding of your organization, this is where you'll go. First thing, we have our browser options. Like I said before, the page title up here on the tab, this will be where you configure that there. The favicon, this is going to be the icon that shows up on that tab, the little image here at the top, and that can be custom to you. Header options, this is going to be within ShareFile. So here, this is our top header. This logo here is our ShareFile logo we're using. And just to note, this is 80 pixels by 400 pixels long. Background color, this is going to be up at the header here. This is the background color. We'll actually go and change this live so we can see this. Background image, if you want a tiled image to be used as the header background instead of a solid color, you can change that there. And the text color here will be the buttons at the top here. So if we wanted to change these, we'll just change them on the fly. We'll say save at the bottom, and you can see that immediately updated. Moving along, the page options, the accent color, you can see here this little orange line at the top. Figure that as well. Your login page. So you remember on our login page, it had an orange background. All that can be customized here, including the logo, the background color, logo background color. And if you wanted to use a background image instead of a color, you can configure that here. The single sign-on title and the ShareFile sign-in title, if you wanted to put some custom text above those login options, this is where you'll come to configure that. And then the page text, this will be directly under the single sign-on. This is an area where you can put custom text for, maybe you wanted to put a disclaimer or something about your company. Email options here. So this will be for ShareFile notifications that are emailed out. You can put your own custom logo in there. You can put a header text or a footer text. This is really up to you how you'd like to configure that. Moving along, the final thing under company branding is going to be your subdomains. So the subdomain is how you access your ShareFile account. You can see up at the top here, ours is ShareFile Rocks, and that's our default login. If you want to add additional subdomains, you can have up to 3. These all point to the same location here, but it just allows you to customize it if you wanted a separate URL for your client users to access ShareFile versus your employees. And one thing to note here, this is also unique. So you can't have the same subdomain as another organization, and it will check this before it allows you to save. All right, moving on here, we'll take a look at some bulk actions. So when you're creating ShareFile employees and clients, you have a number of different ways that you can accomplish that. So here we are at our Browse Employees section. We can simply click on Create Employee at the top right, The requirements are first name, last name, and email address. If you wanted to add multiple users, you can simply click the add another plus icon here, and you can add as many users as you'd like. We also have a way to do this in bulk using a template you can download here. So up at the top here, need to import multiple users with Excel. If you click this, it'll give you a template, which looks like this here, right here. It'll have an email address, first name, last name, and company, similar to how the manual process is. You can add as many accounts in there as you want, and it will import them using this import users button. The other way we have, the other option we have for bulk uploading employees is our user management tool. So if your organization has Active Directory, there is a page within our ShareFile documentation page. So we have a user management tool for doing users. We also have one with policy-based administration. And essentially what that allows you to do is create policies for certain user groups that you want certain access levels. So this allows you to create users on the fly. It uses Task Scheduler. So if you wanted to add an employee into a group, that next task that happens, it'll automatically create those users in your ShareFile account. And the policy-based side comes into play when you want to actually create custom access levels for employees. That can all be done through that tool using your Active Directory. And the docs page here has some basic information, and it also links you to an old Citrix knowledge base article that walks you through actually how to configure that. All right, and client creation is very similar to the employee creation. You can add clients manually. You can also add clients using the same type of bulk template that we went through earlier. So you can import them here. Also with employees, you can assign folders while you're importing those users. You can add them to distribution groups. If you have file and folder access within groups, you can add them to those. And you can also copy folder access from existing users. Another way that we can do bulk uploads in terms of folders is we can actually do a bulk folder upload. This is something that support can help you with. It's not going to be available in the web application. So this allows you to do bulk uploads of folders and assign client users to them. And one thing I will show here is also on our product documentation page. If you search for create folders in bulk, it will give you a download link to get the bulk folder upload template. It gives you some information to provide, and then support will be able to add those folders and users in your account. All right, moving on, we'll take a look at some folder templates. So we'll go into settings, admin settings, advanced preferences, and folder templates. So essentially what folder templates are just a structured organization of folders that you want to attach to multiple folders. It makes it so you don't have to create all those folders manually, and then you can link and unlink folder templates. So real quick, we'll go through creating a new folder template, and we'll just say test template. So we have a name for the template. You can give it a description, and then this is going to be the top level of the folder. If you wanted to add a subfolder within there, you can simply click Add Folder. Let's say subfolder 1. You can even go and add a subfolder within that folder. And we'll say subfolder. And then if you wanted to, back out to the top and create a top folder, you would click that. Say subfolder 2. So once you have this structure set up the way that you want, you'd finish. And actually applying a folder template to a folder, we'll go through that real quick. We'll go into our admin webinar, and we'll go up to more options, and we'll select edit advanced folder options. And down here, you can see folder template. We can select use a folder template. And we'll select that test template. Save. And I actually selected a different one that was in there, but this just goes to show you that it does create those folders. And what this does is it links it to that master folder template. So these cannot be deleted unless that link is disabled. So any changes that you make to that master folder template will be reflected on all the folders that are linked to it. So just keep that in mind when you're configuring them. All right, moving along here, we're going to move into some of the email settings. So under admin settings, we'll go to advanced preferences. We'll look at some email settings here. First option here, send emails from. This is the recommended way is to use ShareFile to send emails. The other option here, if this is enabled, it'll try to use the user's name as the from address, and it'll try to use their email for replies. It really shouldn't be used unless you're having some notification delivery issues. Messages can still be flagged using this method. So what I recommend is doing is checking out our firewall configuration on our docs.sharefile.com page. It'll give you the notification domains and IP addresses to allow. So we recommend keeping this on ShareFile there. If your organization wants to use your email servers, you can set up SMTP configuration here, and I'll walk you through all the settings there. Notify users of their own activity. By default, this is going to be off. Pretty self-explanatory. You can force notifications for uploads, downloads, or both. And this can be configured on a per folder basis, or you can force them here. Upload receipts. This is when a request of file links are used by named users in the system. It'll send a receipt of the upload who initiated that. Email notifications. This is allows you to change the frequency that email notifications are sent out. So if you're a power user and you're constantly taking actions in the system that send notifications, you can actually change this to maybe you just want to see those notifications every hour or twice a day. That can be set up here. Default.
One thing I did want to say on that real quick is this is the default setting for that email notification. So when you create a new account or a new employee, this is going to be their default. They do have the ability to go into their profile and change it after the fact. But just whenever you're creating users, this is going to be their default email notification.
Perfect. That's right. Thank you, Ashley. Email language, pretty straightforward. Q&A email text, if you do have a Q&A set up, this will actually show the questions and answers in the notification email. If you say no, it will just provide the link to the Q&A. Encrypted email, this allows you to turn that feature on or off in the system. So if you are using an Outlook plugin and you're sending encrypted emails where users have to log into the system to view the body of the message, that can be enabled here. If you don't use it at all, that can be disabled here. And secondary email addresses, this can be turned on or off. If your organization wants to only keep work emails in the system and prevent personal emails from being used, this is where you would go to turn that off. All right, we'll move into some security settings here. The first one that I wanted to touch on is the password requirements. So this is the default setting here of 9-character password length. If your organization wants, a little bit higher security posture, you can come in here and change the password length. You can also change the password expiration when users have to reset their password. And you can set how many passwords they can use previously, or they can't use previous passwords. And just note, this is for the ShareFile native login. If your organization is using single sign-on, that will be configured on the single sign-on side. All right, so now we'll look at some of the login security policies. The trusted domains here, this is if you're using the cross-origin resource sharing or iframes. If you're using ShareFile on your website, you can add allowed domains here. Two-step verification, this is an important one. This is for requiring two-step verification for either employee users, which we have on by default, and client users as well. Depending on how your organization wants to configure this, your client users, so those external users that are accessing your account, you can force a two-factor authentication for login, and this will also be used when a user is setting up their account. It will ask for a phone number at the start, and then later on in their personal settings, they can configure a authenticator app to make it easier for them. Account lockout configuration, this is pretty straightforward. You can set the number of failed login attempts before an account is locked out, and then you can set how many minutes before that account is automatically unlocked. Terms and conditions, this is something that can be set up by support. If you'd like a terms and conditions to pop up before a user logs in, support can help you enable that and put a custom message. IP restrictions, this is also something that support can help you set up. But basically this is to restrict or allow access from certain IP addresses for employees or clients. For example, if you wanted to restrict ShareFile users to only be able to access ShareFile from Office, but not from home, support can help you facilitate those changes on your account. Authentication, so log inactive users out. This is for the web application. This is how much time can pass before the user is automatically logged out. Re-authentication is a little bit different. This is a timer on the authentication token for all ShareFile apps. So for example, the ShareFile for Windows application, this will require a new login after the specified time is set. This can be set from never, 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, or 60 days. Moving on, like we mentioned before, we do support single sign-on with SAML 2.0. If your organization wants to utilize your SAML 2.0 provider, the configuration settings are here. You turn it on and add the appropriate fields. Optional settings here. So we can require SSO login for employees. So when they go to log in on the page, and that right side we talked about earlier is the native ShareFile login. It won't allow them to log in there. They must use the single sign-on on the left side. And finally, we'll take a look at super user groups. So edit super user group is under the same security tab here on the left. Essentially, this is a group of employee users who have admin access to all the files and folders on an account. So you don't want to confuse this with an actual admin on the account. This is specifically for files and folders. So basically they have admin to all the folders and files on the account, not necessarily the system configuration, the branding, all that stuff can be specified. But this is only for files and folders. If you wanted to hide the super user group from the folder access list, you can select this option here. And I'll just show you briefly how that looks here. So when you're within a folder here and you go to the People tab, you can see here we have our super users. If you didn't want to show your employees that there is somebody else who has access, that option can be disabled there. So that's it for my section here. I'm going to send it back over to Ashley, and he's going to take a look at some other topics here for our admin webinar.
All right, so we are going to discuss some of the new settings that we have in ShareFile, ways to limit the storage consumption, and also look at how they affect our tools. So the first topic I want to talk about is file settings. If you come over into ShareFile admin settings, advanced preferences, and then file settings, you will see some new settings in here. We have new share settings and new request settings. And these settings are going to be the default settings for the entire account, including any tools such as ShareFile for Windows and the Outlook plugin. So just note, whenever you configure these, they will apply to the other tools. All right, so what we have here are the available permissions for the share settings. If we look at the top, we can select which settings we want to be available, and we can also select which one we want to be the default. So for example, if we don't want to share anonymously or anonymously with name and email, we can deselect those, and then our default permissions will only give us the options that we have selected up here. So you may just want to set the client and employee users as the default permission. So when someone goes to share a file or a folder, they will only have that as the default. They will still be able to select employee users if they so choose, but that will not be the default. Also, we have a maximum access expiration period. So how long that link will be good for, you can then set that to whatever your company would like, all the way down to a day. And that just allows a little bit more configuration for that share link. Once the 7 days is up, they will no longer have access to that link, and it will be invalid. And you can do the same thing for the request settings here. So you get to select if you want to be able to send out a link to anyone, and the same thing for the default settings down here. There is a caveat here. If you are a heavy user with the Outlook plugin, these settings will take over those settings. And for example, if you would like to use the email recipients login required with the Outlook plugin, you will need to deselect all of these, okay, and then save it. And what that will do is that will actually take away the share link permissions. So for example, if I go in here and I try and share one of these items, the only thing I can do as far as sharing is send to specific people, but that also goes all the way down to the Outlook plugin. So if I come in here and I try and share something, I have the ability to email recipients sign in required, which means I can email someone and they will then be created as a client and actually be able to access that. But if I go into the settings here and add these settings back, so let me go back into the security, or actually advanced settings and file settings. If I add these, then that feature then goes away in the Outlook plugin. So if I save this, you have to be a client or an employee. For example, if I uncheck these, you have to be a client or employee already in ShareFile when you send that email through the Outlook plugin. They won't get a activation email because that setting is just not set. So I know it's a little confusing, but I think we can all understand that this now applies to the Outlook plugin settings. All right, let's see what else we have to talk about. Okay, so some other settings within the file settings here is a default retention policy. You can set a default retention policy on your folders so that after a certain amount of time, the contents within that folder will delete themselves, okay? This is one of those ways of managing storage consumption. So for example, maybe you only want data for a regulation reason to only be in a folder for a maximum amount of days, for example, 6 months. You can actually set that, and this will be the default on any newly created folder. Existing folders, it's not recursive, so it or retroactive. It doesn't affect previously created folders, but it does any that are newly created. And you can actually go to the folder and change that default retention policy on those old folders if you need to. All right, sorting is self-explanatory. You can have your files and folders sorted in a certain direction if you so choose. Another way to look at storage consumption and make sure that you're not over-consuming is to limit your versioning. You can have a set number of versions for files. A lot of times, people don't need 10,000 versions of a file. It just adds to what you're consuming. So you can maybe set that to 10 or turn it off altogether if you do not want any file versioning to save as much space as possible. We have watermarking features for view-only documents. So if you wanted to share a view-only document and you didn't want someone to be able to download it and share it, without a watermark, you can actually set that up, and you can add dynamic text to it. And then we also have storage quotas. Storage quotas are directly related to the user's personal folders and their file box. Okay, so if you want to limit a user to only having a gig of storage, you can do that, but it does not go against your shared folder storage. Okay, so again, this is another way to manage some of that storage consumption. You can limit how much a user has in their personal folder, and once it gets to that limit, they will need to remove files. And also there's this is a soft storage limit. You can actually make it a hard storage limit so they cannot upload over a certain amount of data. All right, we also have editing, which is our Microsoft Office editing. A lot of people like that because they can co-edit with it. I definitely recommend leaving that on in case you needed to go into a file and co-edit with someone or update something while someone else is using that. We have it right in here. Just go into the edit, and then it'll prompt to go into Office 365 and actually allow you to edit this with others. And if other people were in here, you would obviously see that up top here.
And just one thing to note there, it does require an Office account if you wanted to be able to edit online.
Yep. All right. Let's go back into our file settings. I think the last setting we had there to talk about was cloud rendering, which again, that's if you're not using the Office Online editing, because it will preview in the Office Online section there. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and look over at one of our tools. So a lot of people use the Outlook plugin, and there are some features within the Outlook plugin that you can configure besides the default sharing settings that we already talked about. If you look in here under Enable ShareFile Tools and Desktop Apps, you can go through these. I'm not going to take time to look at every one of these options, but just know that there's some more settings in here that you can configure and fine-tune your Outlook plugin a certain way if you want that. And you can also, once you set it as default, you can prevent user changes. So once you make your changes and you save it in here, then everyone that has access to that Outlook plugin will get those changes as soon as they log out, or not log out. Once they close Outlook and open it back up, they will get those changes. All right. Let's go ahead and look at reports, because I know a lot of people like to see reports and reporting. We have a whole article on reporting. So if you look here, you can see all of the report types that we have. It goes through how to create a report, creating a report that's reoccurring. And I'm going to show you that real quick. So all you would do is create a report. You select what type of report you would like. You go ahead and click next, and then you get to name it. You get to do a custom range of the dates that you want for that report. I will say you should try and leave it at a 30-day increment, just in case you have a lot of data and you need to make sure that report actually exports correctly. We usually recommend 30-day periods. You can select whether it's based on a user folder. Here are some activity types. Again, this is just the usage report. You can select if you want it recurring. If you do, you can go ahead and click next and determine how often you want it to run. You can select what day of the week. Maybe in the month you want it to run on, the 20th day. And then you get to select where you want to store that recurring report. So every time that it runs, it'll put it in a specific folder. Okay. And then that's reporting. I do recommend that you go and you look at the different types of reports, get familiar with them, and utilize reporting so that that it can, help your account there. All right. So next we want to talk about storage options. Okay. So if we go to storage zones, a lot of you guys will see a ShareFile managed storage zone and no customer managed storage zone. Customer managed storage zone is for on-prem servers. So a lot of times, unless you are heavy into having an on-prem data location, you're going to just use the ShareFile managed. But if you have an on-prem storage location, you would be able to click in here, see what server it's on, and what files and folders are on that storage zone. But most of you will see the ShareFile managed, and there can be multiple options in here. I will say if you have end users that maybe are around the world or in a different geographic location, you can reach out to our support and they can add more storage zones around that location. For example, here I have the US East and US West. So right now we're basically just using the US East, but if I had employees that lived on the West Coast, maybe I wanted to give them this storage zone so it's a little bit closer geographically to them. I can call into support, have that added. And then if I needed to, for example, move a set of folders to that storage zone, you would actually do this at the root level of the shared folders. So you come into here and everything below this will be in that one storage zone. So go into more options, edit advanced folder settings, and then you have the ability to change that storage zone. So once I make this change, all the data will still be accessible, but in the background, it's going to be moving that data to the new storage zone. So when I save this, now everything within this shared folder, US West storage zone, and all the subfolders will be moved to that storage zone so that, all your users that are using that, maybe it's a little bit closer to home. Also, you can change the storage zone for the employee, for their personal folders and their file box. So if I come in here to Matt and I select the storage location down at the bottom, I can change him to maybe be on the US Storage West. Maybe that makes it a little bit easier for uploads and things like that. You can change it for the employees as well. Let's see. We can also look at our storage zones and see how much data we're using here. We're going to actually have some more updates to this dashboard, which will show eventually the amount of consumption per user and folders so that you can kind of see a little bit more granular detail about where everything is being stored on your ShareFile account. All right, now we're going to go in and we're going to talk about DLP really quickly. If you have an on-prem storage zone controller, you can use DLP. If you do not, then it's not yet something that we can use. So just want to let you know that. DLP right now is only for on-prem storage zones. If you have any questions about that and setting that up, I would definitely recommend that you reach out to your account rep and get in touch with your customer success engineer like me, and we can kind of talk to you about that. All right, now we want to go ahead and look at our threat detection settings. These are our new settings that I think people really need to take advantage of. So if we go into our security alert settings, we have the ability to detect potentially malicious activity, okay? If a user signs in from a different country, maybe they use a different country and a different device, you can be notified of those. Multiple failed login attempts and suspicious file if it's uploaded, and I can kind of show you that here in just a second. You can be notified about all of these things, whether you're an admin, employee, or client, and you can also add an alternate contact. So maybe, you know, the master admin likes to see these alerts, but maybe they want someone else to be able to see these alerts as well and get contacted. You can actually add alternate contacts down here and click save, and they will also get those alerts. What you can do with those alerts, if you look here in my Outlook, you can get these alerts and it will tell you exactly what happened, and it tells you who uploaded it, and you can then take action on these upload alerts. So let me show you what that looks like. So we saw that Greg tried to upload a malicious file. So let's go look at Greg's activity here. So you can see clearly there's a security alert here. Let's click on him and see kind of what's going on. At the top, we have activity and security alerts. So we click on that. Oh, we see that he attempted to upload some malware. And we also see that the account was accessed from an unusual location with an unfamiliar device. If that's the case, we can go ahead and disable the access. We can log the user out. We can reset their password, and we can remove them from folders. If we think that maybe someone compromised a ShareFile account, we can remove their access. We also get to see their folder activity. So if they were doing something malicious, you can actually see if the folder activity shows that. So let's show you here. So if we go into activity and security alerts, if we view folder activity, we can see what the user did and when they did it. So we can see that there were a couple uploads here. If that looks odd, we can take action on it again. It's just nice to be able to see what happened during that time that we got the activity. All right, so I definitely recommend you guys take advantage of that. And that's going to be it for this webinar. I know we have some time for some questions. I did want to hit on one more topic, and that's how to create a support ticket if you need it, and accessing the new ShareFile support portal. Okay, so if we look here at the oh, sorry, wrong button. If we look at the support.sharefile.com site, you have the ability to click on chat with us, which is one way you can create a ticket. And that's you go through and you select technical support as your topic, and then you can get connected directly to a ShareFile engineer to help facilitate whatever's going on, report any issues. And then also, so right here, technical support, trending issues, there's some good stuff here. You can also click log in up here. If you click log in, it's going to take you to a page where it asks you to put in your subdomain. Once you put in your subdomain, it's going to request you to log in. And once you log in, you will have access to that portal. And then you can see tickets that you've created. You can action on those tickets and also create cases in there. So I just wanted to let you know, I can't show you what it looks like with my webinar account, but just know that if you put in your subdomain, for example, here, it would be ShareFile Rocks. You don't have to add anything else, and you click continue. It's going to bring you to your page where you then log in with your regular credentials, and then it will pull you into that portal where you can access your tickets and such. So I think that's it for now. I would love to go to our Q&A and see if we can answer some questions.
Oh boy, are there some questions? I think what we'll start with is there's some questions around employee user permissions. So this is from Emmanuel. So when creating employee users, if you give manage client access, will they just see their clients or clients of every onboarded employee?
You will see all clients. So Yep. Whenever you, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Yeah, you will see all the clients. And that's because whenever you're working with a client, usually you're as a company working with that client and not individually working with that client. So if something else has to be sent out to that client, it makes sense to have them in the shared address book so that other people can also email that user or share items with that user.
Right. And yeah, and if an employee leaves or if the employee's out for PTO, other people can
Right.
also help those clients.
Yep.
Second part of Emmanuel's question, also when creating employee users, if you give manage employee access, will they be able to create employees and manage employees? And then there's a little confusion here. So he says, if yes, they will, then wouldn't it be better to add them to the super user group instead? So maybe we talk about the ability to manage employees versus like what the super user group gets you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can touch on
Go ahead.
that, Ashley.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the managing the clients is a separate it's a separate permission. So you don't have to have manage employees to manage clients. If that's kind of what he was getting at there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. There's more super user stuff. So Janet is asking, are super users supposed to be able to see all folders, even personal folders? So maybe we show how you can view a personal folder.
Yeah. So if you're in the super user group, let's go ahead and just make sure that I am. I believe I am as the master admin. So let's go to security and edit super user group. Let me add myself, add new user, and add myself as a super user. Just think about this super user group as a distribution group on all files and folders. And that group has admin privileges to all files and folders. So once I add myself, I then see all shared folders that anybody has created. And I also can see personal folders. So I would go to the employee, I would select the employee. So let's give Greg this example here. Then I can, over on the right-hand side, view folders and activity logs. And then I can actually click on access users content. This gives me access to their file box, their sent messages, and any personal folders that they have. It doesn't look like he has any personal folders on his account right now, but that would also show up in here. So I can actually access that if need be as a kind of a admin for all folders.
Yep, that's a common question, really. It is kind of hidden in there. But you know, people have tens of thousands of employees, and if we showed them all and shared for super users, that would get a bit wild.
Right.
The other question, also still clarifying what super user group does from Eric. Super users don't seem to be able to reset 2FA settings of users. It only seems to be possible for the primary person on the account. And how can they allow certain users to reset 2FA for their users?
So that's a great question as well. Remember, super users are only admins on files and folders, not on the entire account. Remember, when we're talking about files and folders, they are the admin for those files and folders, and that's the only thing the super user is. When we're talking about an admin on the ShareFile account, we're talking about what permissions they have in ShareFile to do certain things. For example, if I look at Greg here, I can change his user access so that he can do all of these things in ShareFile, set up connectors, set up storage zones, edit preferences, but that does not mean that he is a super user, and a super user does not mean that he has all of these permissions. Those are separate. So whenever you're talking about super user, you just need to make sure that you think of that as just for files and folders, being admin on files and folders. And also to your second question, resetting the 2FA is only, you can only do that as the master admin. So the master admin is the only one who can actually go into a user and reset that. I hope that changes so that we can delegate that permission to other admins. But right now, the master admin is the only one who can go in and do the reset two-step verification. And that's just how it was programmed, because that's a lot of that's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Responsibility
Permission,
for that
yeah,
user,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that the master admin, who is the top, they have all the permissions, is the one that can do that, because you don't want to delegate that and then risk people resetting two-step verification and potentially causing something malicious to happen.
Right. Yep, agreed. It's a great response. Wait, what is it? Great power comes great responsibility, to quote
Exactly.
Ryan. Same in ShareFile, exactly the same pretty much. There's a lot of questions in here about Outlook plugin file sharing settings and the new default file sharing settings. I don't know who can maybe we just explain that really well. I can't find like a good all-encompassing question, but I think if we kind of went over that one more time and how it relates to the Outlook plugin settings that people have set, maybe that would be a good refresher for everybody.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can definitely do that again. So under our file settings here in advanced preferences, we have new file share settings. Okay. These settings basically now take over the web app as well as the Outlook plugin settings and ShareFile for Windows settings. Okay. It used to be separate. Your Outlook was configured with its own settings, and we didn't even have these options for the web app. So we thought it would be great to have these file share settings and request settings be available across the entire account. And when we did that, we actually applied them to the Outlook plugin, and we then basically took away those extra settings from the Outlook plugin, and we just use these here. But like I said earlier, there's one setting that was in the Outlook plugin that is no longer accessible with these set unless you unselect all of them. Okay, so if you unselect all of the share settings here and save it, you then have the ability to go into the Outlook plugin and see the one default option that is available for attaching files, which was the email recipient sign-in required. That allows the Outlook plugin to send a file to another user and create an account for them, a client account. Whenever we use the other settings, we turn those on, that is no longer an option, because remember, it just overlaps all of the settings for the web app and for the Outlook plugin. So I'm hoping that was a little clearer. Maybe I didn't explain it the first time as well as maybe the second time, but yeah, that's how it works now.
Yeah, thank you, Greg and Ashley. I know it's a lot to cover, and being a ShareFile admin is a lot of responsibility, so we totally understand. And yeah, so we'll keep the webinar open until the top of the hour, answer whatever we can via here, and then respond via email for anybody who didn't get their question answered. And just to recap too, this whole thing is being recorded, so we'll send you an email by the end of this week with a copy of the recording, all the resources that we have links to for the subjects covered in the webinar, and we will talk then. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.